Well, have we got a full moon and a half coming up on February the 5th, 2023, a Leo full moon. And it's quite an exciting one that's probably going to break through some really old stuck patterns and perhaps bring some even potential for revolutionary change. But before we look at the astrology, as usual, I am Louise Eddington, the Cosmic Owl of Cosmic Owl Astrology. And I am the author of 3 books, Modern Astrology, The Complete Guide to Astrology, and The Complete Guide to Tarot and Astrology, or Astrology and Tarot, one of those ways round, Tarot and Astrology. And I offer consultations, or I have a Venus Enchantment community membership, monthly membership. If you want more details of that, check below. And while you're here, if you enjoy this content, please subscribe to my channel and give me a thumbs up and leave me a comment. I love to respond to all the comments and everything like that. And it just helps with the YouTube algorithms if you subscribe and give me a thumbs up as well. So please, please, please do that. So how this video is going to work, we're going to talk about the Leo full moon that's on February the 5th. I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the energies leading into that. But first of all, I'm going to pull a card. Well, I've pulled a card. I'm going to talk to you about that card. And then we're going to look at the numbers. And then we're going to look at the astrology, then the symbols. Then I'm going to go through all signs. Okay, so stay around and listen for your sign and what this full moon means for you. All right, so the card I pulled, I'm very excited about this new deck I bought. I ordered this, the Red Seeds Tarot, based on the Eleusinian Mysteries, which I am very interested in because of my studies of dwarf planets series. They were kind of a mystery cult, if you like, in Eleusia in ancient times, where priestesses actually kind of are believed to have given the attendees and during the mystery rites psychedelics so that they could have divine experience or experience of the divine personally. And this was believed to be the first Eucharist that has been kind of watered down and hidden by the patriarchal church. So the Eleusinian Mysteries are fascinating. Now, the story is I bought this deck quite some time ago, and it's just kind of sat. It came in a beautiful bag with some beautiful little bits and pieces with it, all the way from the UK. And I didn't open it till this week because just life has been too busy. And one of the things it came with it was a red thread with a pomegranate on this. So how cute is that? And now I'm like, why didn't I open this deck before? But actually, I think it's perfect timing for what we've got coming up this year. So I'm probably going to be using this deck a lot more. Now, what card did I pull for this full moon? I pulled the Seeker of Bees, which is actually the Prince of Swords, I think, or the Page of Swords, rather. The Page of Swords. It's the Seekers are the page because it's a new, looking for a new experience, playing a new tune. And look at how pretty that card is and how beautiful. And just take some of the imagery from it before I tell you what the book says about it, because each deck has its own vibe. And so I'm going to have to be reading from the deck a little bit, from the book a little bit, while I get to know these things. But I do know that the Page of Swords is like new ideas, fresh new ideas, innovation, and that's very of this full moon. Now, there's a quote in the book with this card that says, "A bee is never as busy as it seems. It's just that it can't buzz any slower." And that's by Kim Hubbard. She says, "I am enlivened" are the 3 keywords for this card. So I'll hold this up again. And I think this full moon is really enlivening. So I love this quote. So let's have a look at this. So she says, the seeker of bees are the Hieraule, Hieraule. And the bees, the female worker bees work hard, communicate well, and fly around being busy and very proactive. They keep the hive clean and tidy and ensure the food storage is in good supply. The mysteries. In the Eleusinian mysteries, the Hieraulles were musicians. They used their breath to play sacred wind flutes around the beehives. Bees are very partial to singing and music, and the Hieraulles gave musical performances in many parts of the rituals and ceremonies at Eleusis. But this represents generally a young person who is apt, ardent, studious, and willing to learn from all that life can offer her. This is a really enlivened energy. And this, to my mind, really is about learning to play a new song and seeking new and innovative, exciting, new ways to be and think. And so we'll talk about that in light of the full moon. So let's have a quick look at the chart. And there's a couple of things I'm going to talk about, and then I'm going to stop sharing. We'll look at the numbers and then come back to the astrology. So first of all, this is a full moon, and the moon is in Leo, in the sign ruled by the sun. And the sun is in the sign of Aquarius, which is the sign of the humanitarian, the common people, the group, the causes. And so the sun is facing down the sign of Leo, and the moon in mundane astrology generally represents the people as well. So we have the moon in the sign of Leo. So I'll talk about what that means. Now, these are at 16 degrees, as I said, and I will talk more about what that means. And this full moon, the only major aspect it's making is an almost exact T-square to Uranus in Taurus, who at this point has moved to 15 degrees Taurus after it's stationed direct on January the 22nd at 14 degrees 56. The other things to notice in this chart, and I'm going to talk about all of this in more detail, is that just before the full moon, the day before, I believe, Venus in Pisces, where she's in the sign of her exaltation. I did a video just for Venus in Pisces, if you want to check that out on my timeline, on my videos. And this is squaring off the divine feminine and the divine masculine. And Venus is really coming from a very strong place in this, so I'll talk more about that as well. A couple of other things to mention is, first of all, Mercury is here. We have Mercury at 22 degrees, 31 minutes, almost leaving the degrees of his last retrograde. Not quite, so it's still kind of a little bit in supposed shadow, still retracing the degrees of the retrograde. But what's important about Mercury on this full moon is that Mercury is at the degree of the conjunction of Saturn, Pluto, the Sun, Mercury, and Ceres on January the 12th, 2020, at the start of the pandemic. So I'll talk more about that as well. The last thing I'm really going to talk about, well, maybe there's a couple more things, is that we have this exact trine from Pluto to Sedna, with Vesta in Pisces at the exact midpoint, all at 28 degrees. Like you can see that Pluto and Sedna are at the same degree and minute in earth signs, and this is water, and this is big earth moving energy, and I'm going to talk more about that as well. Probably the other thing I will talk about a little bit is, well, Juno is also in sextile to Mars, so she's here at 11 degrees of Aries, And Jupiter is opposing Ceres almost exactly to a minute. You can see that they were exactly opposing right before this full moon. So we'll talk a little bit about that as well. But before I pull the chart down and just talk to you about the numbers, I want to talk about the numbers in this. This is 16 degrees. So we'll look at the number 16. But if you add 16, 1 plus 6, it's a 7. We're in a 7 year. Okay. And so this is, and it's a 14-5 day. So it's a number of change. And there's a lot of change in this. But we're in a 7 year. 2023 is a 7 year. This is 7 degrees. The nodes are at 7 degrees as well. And Jupiter is about to go to 7 degrees or so. And Ceres has just been at 7 degrees. So there's an awful lot of sevens around this full moon. There's also quite a lot of 11s, as you can see. We've got Mars, we've got Pallas Athena, we've got Juno, and I'm going to say Venus, because Venus is only just moved 12 degrees. So there's an awful lot of 11s as well. So let's stop the share for a minute. I will put the chart up again in a couple of minutes, but first let's talk about the numbers. 16-7 is said to be a number of karmic debt. Okay, now that doesn't mean, it just means, are you in integrity? 16-7 particularly is kind of the destruction and rebirth kind of number. It's a payback for past abuses, where you've been out of, if you've been out of integrity, things are going to fall apart, or where you've been out of integrity, you may fall apart. Now, nothing may happen to you with this one, but as a collective level, those that have been out of integrity are going to start reaping what they've sown. All right, so that's the number 16. It's actually called the spiritual actualizer number. And this is kind of like experience after experience where something in life crumbles, and and there's a sense of being humbled, and that brings a sense of higher purpose. So ongoing destruction and rebirth. So it's got a little bit of a tower card vibe to it, this full moon, and you'll see why when I talk about the astrology as well. So it's just kind of, but it's a definite feeling of something you're reaping what you've sown. So it's definitely where you've been out of integrity. Now, 7 itself, because we have got a lot of 7s, is the energy of the spiritual seeker. It's the person who is seeking and seeing infinite possibilities in every purpose and every situation. It's the dreamer of dreams. Okay. It's the mind that moves through the macrocosm at will. So even though there's a reaping what you can sow kind of element with the number 7 and this with the 16, sorry, with the number 7 itself, this brings in the seeker. Okay, the seeker of new experiences, the seeker of a new song. And if you think of the energy of bees that I talked about in the card, they were the people, the group, the cause, the worker bees in the hive that kept things going. So we're playing a song to keep our collective going, really. So it all comes together so well, and I'm like, and now is the time. I chose to use this deck, so you cannot make this stuff up. The other thing is that we've got the number 11, and the number 11, because there's lots of 11s, as I said, is the master spiritual number. That's the number of intuition and psychic abilities. It's often known as a gateway because it's the master teacher. It's the number of illumination and enlightenment and idealism and intuitive and intuitive abilities. So we're really being, that ties in very much with a 7 to my mind as well. We're being called to really kind of play the seek that energy of the new with our intuition. So let's look at the chart again and talk more about the astrology, because it's simple yet fascinating to me. So let's start with the full moon itself. Well, by the full moon, I do want to point out that not only has Mercury traveled from 8 degrees Capricorn to 22 degrees, and it's almost retraced the path of its last retrograde. Mercury stationed direct on January the 18th. Okay. Not only that, but we have all planets direct, all major planets moving direct. The only planet that's retrograde, we have a couple of asteroids, I'm not going to talk about those, but is dwarf planet Ceres, who's actually really kind of the bucket of a handle. Apart from the moon, all the other planets are on this side of the chart. This is not a draconic bowl, which we had 3 of during the pandemic, where all the planets were trapped on one side of the nodes, because Mars and Uranus are not on this side of the nodes, but it is a bucket pattern. And you could say really that Ceres and the moon together, the great mother and the mother, or the people and the protector of the people, are kind of holding this pattern of planets here that are all moving direct. So all this direct planetary movement means that there is a lot of forward movement. But Ceres over here in Libra is retrograde, and so she's revisiting justice, balance, harmony, relationships in Libra. So that's the pattern of the chart overall, which I always like to look at. But the full moon itself is at 16 degrees 40 minutes. Now 15 degrees of these signs, of the fixed signs, is called the world point degree. And Uranus is at the world point degree in Taurus. And Uranus is about change and excitement. He's the Lord of lightning bolts, according to Stephen Forrest. He is kind of the slap around the head to wake you up. He's the great awakener. He's the benevolent rebel. And in Taurus, that's in the sign of sustainability. It's very solid. It's very rooted about our tangible values and about the material world. So we're having a big old slap around the head on this full moon, to be quite honest. Now, this comes just exactly 1 week after the sun squares the nodes, which are at 7 degrees. And that's what's called the moon wobble. And the moon wobble often brings some very dramatic events too. So I kind of feel like this full moon is going to bring some dramatic events. We see, as I record this, we're already seeing some protests in Atlanta, Georgia. And I think there were protests in the UK as well against some bills that the UK government were building in. There's protests in Peru. There's kind of a lot of revolutionary, rebellious energy with a lot of people rising up. Now, with it being on the world point and with it being a T-square, which is a point of real tension and opposition and 2 squares to this, this is pushing for change. T-squares really push for change. The squares and oppositions are more challenging than sextiles and trines, for example, but they also push. They also give the impetus to create the change. And as I talked about, the moon is representative of the people, and the moon is in the sign of the king or the leader or the ruler or Leo, which you know is a lovely sign. I absolutely love Leo. It's generous, open-hearted and frank and dramatic. in its best incarnation, but in its lesser incarnation, Leo can be very egoic. Look at me, very dramatic. If you don't please me, it's kind of off with your heads. I always think of Henry VIII that chopped his heads off, the heads of his wife off, the shadow of Leo. And the sun, which is the core of our solar system, is in the sign of the humanitarian, facing off to the sign of Leo. And so this, to my mind, is saying, looking at each other, saying, where are our leaders, not really supporting the good of the common people. And then Uranus over here squaring the full moon in the sign of Taurus, which really is about sustainable values. It's earthy, it is an earth sign. It's known as a materialistic sign, but actually I think Taurus just usually loves what it has. It's not really kind of necessarily a hoarder. It just likes nice things. It likes its home comforts. It likes to have its good things around it. And at its essence, it means sustainable values. And the North Node in Taurus has been pulling us towards this more sustainable way of life, this more sustainable energy and value-driven. And Uranus is bringing that big change. Uranus is stationed direct. He's stationed direct on January the 22nd. So as I said, he's now gaining speed. He's going, we've reflected, we've been looking at how the elites and or our leaders are not really representing the people, and we are going to rise up. We, the people, are going to rise up. They could even topple monarchies or governments with this full moon, to be quite honest. So I'm not going to look at any politicians' charts. I might do that on another video. If you're interested, let me know. Now, I did mention as well, so Mercury at that 22-degree mark. Now, Saturn and Pluto met on January the 12th, 2020 at 22 degrees 46 minutes. Ceres was also there at 22 degrees 35 minutes. The Sun was also there at 21 degrees 56 minutes at the exact conjunction, and Mercury was there at 23 degrees 13 minutes. So, it's activating that degree big time on a full moon with both the lights, the sun and moon, shining big. Okay, and so this is really going to bring some news, I think, from back then, bring some changed perceptions, some changed ideas. We're already getting some I'm always a bit wary of this because, it's such a contentious subject, but it did kind of start the pandemic. But I'm already seeing some news. A friend in Germany posted that their COVID numbers have just gone way down. I believe Japan is considering kind of downgrading COVID to the level of a seasonal flu. Leave your personal opinions out of my comments about it, really. I'm just kind of talking about, what this might bring up. There might be more news around that kind of energy. So the fact as well, though, it's close to Hygeia Mercury, and Hygeia is holistic health. So expect some news around this full moon, because new moon is heightened energy anyway, so something might be revealed on this full moon. The other thing is this mini grand trine. Pluto and Sedna have been in an ongoing trine for quite some time, but it's exact on this full moon. Now, Pluto, we know, has a 248-year orbit, and the USA has been going through its Pluto return. the Pluto has moved past the point of Pluto in the USA's chart, but it's still well within orbit. But it's not just about the USA, though a lot of it is focused in the USA. But it's also bringing big changes and transformation in our institutions. It's revealing where our institutions are corrupt, where they're not working to support the people, and so on and so forth. And it's also kind of transforming our relationship with our institutions in the sign of Capricorn. And Sedna in Taurus has been transforming our values. Now, Sedna has an 11,408-year orbit, so she was last here at the end of the big ice ages all those years ago. And so and that's when human beings started to become like farmers, started to till the land, and we're not just hunter-gatherers anymore. And so it was a change in value system. And so she's going to bring a bit of a big values shift in values like that as well. But she's also a lot about climate change. So I wouldn't be surprised if there's some news about climate change. Now then, Vesta in Neptune, in Pisces. Pisces tends to dissolve, okay? And with these two big transformative energies, all at the same degree as Vesta in Pisces, Vesta is the sacred flame, the protector of the hearth and home, and the protector of the state. Governments could topple. Seriously, they really could topple on this full moon. And big changes coming in that way, but we'll see. That's a more collective energy, so that's all I'll say about that. Now then, I'm very intrigued by this lineup of planets around 11 degrees. Let's say Venus is at 11 degrees because she was square to Mars the day before the full moon. And then at sextile to Mars, we also have Juno. And over here, Pallas Athena retrograde in Cancer is square to Juno and in a trine to Venus. Now, Venus is the planet of love and relationship and our core values. Okay, and so it's what we love as well. It's not just who we love, but it is relationship. And it's all relationships, how we deal with each other. She's exalted in the sign of Pisces, so she's really strong in this sign. Then we've got Juno over here, who's just faced off with her husband, Jupiter, the hound dog. And Juno, I like to call the flower of Venus. She was the protector of women and children, and generally a very strong wife figure, if you like. She was the queen of the gods, really. So she was a very powerful god, and she is in sextile to Mars. And Pallas Athena, the wise owl, is in semi-sextile to Mars. Now, Mars has only just gone direct. He's still only just gaining up speed from when he turned direct on January the 12th. So he's actually a little bit weakened. He's not really very strong in Gemini, and his retrograde in Gemini has been kind of asking him to rein in his more aggressive and assertive qualities. Now, what do we have in common with all the three figures? I'm going to say Chiron as well is probably there as well, to just add in a little bit of healing energy, is the divine feminine. Venus, Juno, Pallas Athena, all saying to Mars, cool your jets, buddy. You've been in retrograde in Gemini, saying that, you know, reflecting on the energy of your assertion and how you can be aggressive at times, but you can be assertive without being aggressive. Please, Mars, remember the very Gemini energy. Remember that you are a guardian too, because in ancient times, the god Mars was not just the god of war. He was the guardian, you know, he stood guard over the other personal planets in the pantheon of the planets. He stood guard over and was a protector. So he's remembering here that he's actually a protector. So I find that quite hopeful. The fact that this is at 11 degrees, the number of that master teacher, it's saying, I'm teaching you that you can be assertive without being aggressive. I'm seeing, we're not there yet, but maybe I've just curated my own social media enough, but I'm actually seeing less aggression. I'm seeing more assertiveness and almost a little bit of tricksterish humor with people that are kind of not agreeing. One example is I had somebody on my Facebook page, he was just being really obstreperous, but I kind of joked with him about it, and he said the in his profile it said something about lesson of the day, don't be a peckerhead, and I was like, hey, don't be a peckerhead, and he laughed, and it was kind of like, it was just more good humored, even though I was telling him to go away and get off my page. But anyway, you get the idea. I think things are easing a bit as we move into this new energy. 2023 is such an energy of change. Pluto is going to move into Aquarius for 3 months, so we're going to get a flavor of what's coming. Sedna's going to move into Gemini. I haven't got Haumea on here, but she's already in Scorpio and is going to dip back and forth between Libra and Scorpio. But we're really having major big shifts, like epochal shifts of energy this year. So we're getting a flavor of what's coming with all this. One other thing I wanted to mention is that, of course, Uranus is the modern ruler of Aquarius. So, Aquarius is saying, come on, sun, core of our universe, be for the people, bring that change. Okay. And Saturn is the traditional ruler, and he's finishing up his journey there in Aquarius. He's been there for ages because he had a retrograde in Aquarius, and now he's almost done. He's saying, yeah, I've learned the lesson. I've mastered it. I've mastered what I want to know. And he's moved beyond the degree of his retrograde. So he is almost in aspect with these figures at these planets at 28 degrees, saying, yes, I'm ready to build something new for the future, which is very Aquarian also. So all in all, huge change. Now, one last thing before we go and look at the symbols, then we're going to do all signs. I remember I said that the moon and Ceres are kind of holding these two handles of this basket of the other planets. You can see these two crossed lines. They're almost, in perfect symmetry, these two lines here. Well, we've looked at the moon opposing the sun. Now, Ceres over here is opposing Jupiter. Now, Jupiter in Aries, Jupiter's generally a good luck planet. He's generally optimistic and things, but in Aries, he can be a bit bombastic and a bit like, I'm a sovereign being, this is my way or the highway kind of thing. Ceres over here in Libra is saying, no. You call your jets too. Mars and Jupiter are both having their jets called on this full moon. And as is Leo, really. And Ceres is up here saying, don't forget our relationships. Don't forget that we're in partnership with each other. Don't forget that we're interconnected, okay? And that, if you do something, my way is the highway, how does that affect others? So Great Mother over here is saying, naughty boy, you just think about your actions, okay, in Mars ruled Aries. So that's all I'm going to say about that. Right, before I get to the symbols, I want to give a big shout out for my sponsor, which is for Sigmatic. Now I'm drinking, what am I drinking today? This is their cocoa. It's yummy. And this has reishi mushrooms in it. Now, Four Sigmatic have, they say it's a sciencey way of saying really good for you. All of their products contain nutrient-dense ingredients like lion's mane, reishi, chaga mushrooms. I've been drinking the coffee now for about 3 weeks in preparation for this sponsorship. And when I drink their coffee, I do notice that I have more focus. I have my mood lifts. I used to work in a health store, and I learned about the benefits of mushroom medicinals kind of thing, in not necessarily the psychedelic mushrooms, but medicinal mushrooms. And these Four Sigmatic have managed to create products that contain these nutrient-rich ingredients. Now, mushrooms are amazing things. They have about, I think it's like 80% of their DNA is the same as human DNA. We are very connected with mushrooms. So give them a try. Give Four Sigmatic a try. With my code COSMIC, there's a link in the show notes. If you use COSMIC, you actually get 30% off your first order instead of just 20% off your first order. There's no risk because it's money back if you don't like it. They do coffee, they do protein, they do cacao, they do elixirs, they do super powders, and they do blends. So there's various ways you can get your nutrient-dense ingredients just by drinking things that you like to drink normally. So give it a try, no risk. If you don't love it, you get your money back. So thanks to Four Sigmatic for being my sponsors. You've kind of got me hooked already, which I'm sure was the idea. Okay, so I'm going to look at the symbols, then we're going to move on to all signs. So the Sabian symbol for the full moon is a volunteer church choir singing religious hymns. Now, Dane Rudyard's keynote is the feeling of togetherness which unites men and women to a collective ideal. And really, this is about togetherness and community. I talked about in these cards about the Eleusinian mysteries. That was all about coming together in community to do these Eleusinian rites. So, you know, whilst this is talking about a church choir, I used to study psychology and sociology of religion as part of my bachelor's degree. And I went and interviewed a lot of people, and a lot of people just kind of joined something like a church for the togetherness, for the feeling of community. And so this is the symbol for this is about coming together. Okay. The need for community. Okay. The fellowship of common work for substance and security in a dangerous world, as Dane Rudyard says in his interpretation. We are not sovereign beings on our own. We kind of need each other. Our response might be its own, but we need each other, and we need to support each other, and we need to come together. So I love that Sabian symbol for that, especially in light of what I talked about. I really think the people are starting to rise up during this time. Now the Chandra symbol for Leo 16, we actually go up to 17, is elegant black women sitting on a porch and fanning themselves. Rising superior to apparent limitations, you defiantly renounce the letter of the law to salvage the spirit of the law, puncturing pretense, breaking down power and control structures. You are militantly outrageous, anti-traditional, pulled forward by a vision, a knack, and an instinct for what this earth asks and demands. On fire with the power of radical changes, you feel in your cells the next stage of evolution. Ignited by the sense for being selected out as the quintessential representative of progressive currents. You dramatize yourself, your cause, your expanded awareness, and and you want to make sure everybody knows that something new is going on around here, and that it will not stop nor take a back seat for anybody or anything. Now, if that doesn't sound really like revolutionary, I don't know what does. So, yeah, we'll just leave it at that, shall we? Anyway, so I am going to get this chart up and we are going to share it, and we're going to dive into all signs. And again, don't forget to check out for Sigmatic on the in the link below. You get 30% off and money off if you don't like it, money back if you don't like it, that is. And now onto the all signs forecast. I had to have a quick break there, so this video will merge in and merge out. So we're going to start with Leo rising. For you, Leo, this is all about your identity. This is about who you are in your significant relationships and bringing radical change in your visibility and probably your career or job to help you to balance your head and heart more within your significant relationships. You know, you may have been a bit over attached to your work life and your public life, and it's time to kind of just break things up a bit and liberate yourself from that attachment to focus more on your significant relationships. Virgo rising. So Virgo rising, for you, this is in the area of practical mysticism, I'm going to call it, or how you connect with the muse, the mystery, the creativity, and then how you make that useful for groups of people or your daily work even. But it's also bringing a radical change in your belief systems. That can be cultural belief systems or religious belief systems, but there's going to be some break in that really changes how you operate in those other areas of life. Libra rising. For you, Libra, this is really all about creative self-expression and the groups and organizations that you are a part of, or the causes. What brings you joy and what lights you up? And there may be some radical break needed in kind of like this need to be really deep. You know, Libra rising doesn't want to be deep, really. Libra rising likes to have everything pleasant and fun. But so there may be some breaks in some of your more deeply intimate relationships that will help you to lighten up and have more fun in your life, which Libra rising really loves. Scorpio rising. So for you, Scorpio, this is your work-life balance and your significant relationships. There may have been something off balance with your heart being with your work, and then the needs of the people around your home, and the need to spend more time thinking about the future within your home. And the break is going to be around your significant relationships. Now, this can be, it's kind of like a liberation from attachments, and it can be your business partnerships. So don't all think that you're just going to get divorced or whatever if you're married. This can be breaks with attachment to certain people, any significant people in your life, or just breaking patterns with how you work with them and how you've compromised yourself for them in the past. But it's really going to alter your work-life balance to a great degree. Sagittarius. So Sagittarius, the full moon itself is in the axis of truth and knowledge, understanding, learning new ways to do things. And then it's going to bring a real different perspective, a real awakening around how you serve and how you are useful to people. This could really break up your daily routines, things that are learned at this full moon. You're learning to lead with the heart, with the moon up in the 9th house. This is the house of higher beliefs, higher philosophies. Where is your heart leading to? And then the Aquarius energy is in the area of the voice, but also the local community. You may be thinking more of the good for your community in this thing, and changing up how you serve that community, whilst coming from that higher perspective. Capricorn rising. So the full moon for you, the moon is actually in the house of intimacy and shared resources, and the sun is in your own resources, your self-esteem, your self-worth, how you earn your money. And the square to Uranus in the North Node is in your 5th house of creative self-expression. So it feels like your heart is shining into what has deeper meaning, so that you are liberated to produce and create things and innovative ideas for how you earn your money. And it's got a very creative vibe to it. So enjoy that one, Capricorn rising. Aquarius rising. So Aquarius rising, the moon is in your 7th house of significant relationships, and the sun is in your 1st house of who am I, when you're an Aquarius, of course. But this is really going to kind of shake up your home life a little bit, or your inner world. And it kind of is like these inner sparks of awakening, saying, I can show my heart to those I'm in significant relationships. Aquarius rising, you have this reputation for being a little bit distant and things. I know that you feel as deeply as everybody else, but this is kind of going to break through that detached kind of energy of Aquarius, so that you are able to show your emotions and heart to those you are in significant relationships with. Pisces rising. So this, the moon is in your house of service, and the sun is in the area of the connection with the muse. And the square to Uranus is in the house of your voice. You are going to kind of radically change how you kind of perceive and speak about what you want to do. And you are kind of able to bring out some innovative, almost downloads, and take them out and be of use to others through those downloads. So it's quite exciting for you, Pisces rising too. It's an exciting full moon, to be quite honest. Yeah, a few things are going to be a bit of a shock, I think, but I think overall it's going to be exciting. Aries rising. So Aries rising, this for you is really about creative self-expression, and then how you embody that in groups. And that's going to change your whole self-esteem. You are going to feel very liberated too. You're going to feel liberated to be much more joyful, much more creative. Aries rising is very driven, go, go, go. This has a real light touch for you. This is going to say, hey, I can lift myself out of this need to be just like a human doing the whole time, and think creatively, think outside the box, and do things a little bit differently from now on. Taurus rising. So this for you, the foot is in the house of the home. For you, this is about work-life balance as well, but this is more about the hearts in the home for you. And you're going to detach a little bit from your attachment to your public visibility, your career, your job. And Uranus is saying, I'm going to, in the 1st house, is saying, I'm going to show up differently. I'm going to show my freak flag a bit. I'm going to lighten up and be this kind of god or goddess of fun and light, and kind of like a bit of joy and jokiness, and have some more fun. Fantastic. Gemini. So for you, Gemini, the moon is in your 3rd house of your voice and community, and the sun is up here in the 9th house of higher philosophies, travel, communities, travel of the mind, at least if you're not physical travel, but it's also experience, personal experience of the divine. But with Uranus over here in the 12th house, I think for you, a lot of perceptions are going to be changed for you on this full moon. You're going to have some big kind of spiritual awakenings, I think, or some spiritual ahas. And, you know, I would highly suggest putting yourself, Gemini, in a situation. Gemini rising, you're really not very good at meditating, at quietening your voice, your inner voice as much. But as much as you can, do something. Go for a nice long quiet walk in nature or something to process your ideas, because I think you're going to get some big ahas that really kind of give you this sense of spiritual awakening. And last but not least, Cancer. So this for you is in the area of following your heart for your self-esteem, your self-worth, how you earn your money, and perhaps detaching a little bit from, you know, Cancer rising, you like to be close, you like to be cuddly. And I'm not saying you can change your innate character, but detach a little from any tendency to want to be merged with those that you're in significant relationships with, and to follow your heart and let your shiny self shine. And especially in groups and organizations, or shining for a cause. Okay, Cancer, come out of your shell a little bit in this full moon. So I hope you enjoyed this video, and again, please subscribe while you're here. Give me a thumbs up, leave me a comment. I'd love to hear what you think. Thank you so much for being here. I really, really appreciate all of you, and I'd love to hear what you think of this lovely new tarot deck that I've got, the Red Seeds Tarot. It's blowing my personal mind, to be quite honest. So I hope you're liking it too. So until next time, so much love.